Right. So, what we have started discussing about the claims part in context to the guideware itself is concerned. So, claims guideware from the context of the role in context to the BA is what uh, which is discussed in the previous class. Of course, yesterday we don't have any session, and today. Now, today I'm going to discuss about what are the core basic claim requirements which being a business analyst one have to understand, because whenever we are working on the claim module, so to process the claims, either it can be for adjudication, at the same time claim settlements, etc., there are multiple core claim requirements which being a business analyst we must be understood with. Requirements may vary, depends on the services which organization provides. At the same time, it can be depends on the kind of type of claims, or it can be context to the individual claims or something. So requirements may vary. But when being a BA, whenever we try to understand about the core claim requirements and all, there are three basic elements which we have to be focused more on, right? So elements that are required a business analyst has to follow, right? So what are the basic requirements, basic elements which business analyst has to follow is not something which we have to remember. So in this regard, whenever we try to understand about uh, the core elements itself is concerned, whenever we try to understand about the core elements, being whenever we try to understand about core requirements as a business analyst, whenever we try to understand about the elements, there are three elements as I stated. These three elements, the first one about workflows. This is the first one because workflow is the first element we need to be focused more on. The second one about the guidance part will be taken into consideration. And the third one about the visibility. Okay. So these are the three basic things which being into claims we need to be focused more on. So one is about the workflow part, second guidance part, followed by the visibility part. Workflow being into the role of a business analyst, we need to understand the end-to-end process of the claim, because this end-to-end process of the claim may tailor according to the requirement of a particular individual claim, which may differ. Okay, whatever the kind of claims we are differing, whatever the claim processing we are performing. So whenever we are following this whenever we are performing this process itself is concerned, what is the end-to-end process which normally we follow for the particular claim? So workflow, am I specifying for an individual claim? Because whatever the individual requirements or customization of requirements may vary from claim to claim sometimes, because even though regular standards, whatever the procedure do we require to follow may have the commonality, right? So because that will be there always. But from individual claim to claim, there may be some individual requirements which has to be streamlined by implementing the workflows is what something one of the core and important element being a BA one had to be understood with, because what are the workflow processes will be there and all that. So when we try to understand about this workflow processes, because if you remember, we have to go back to the policy center part, because whatever the policy creations was done, whatever the claims are we going to do. So these claims will have an interconnect with the policy documents or the type of policy which individual or a respective customer belongs to. In this regard, it's always important for us to understand about the workflow process. This is point number one. Second one, being a business analyst, we need to be focused more on the guidance part itself, because whatever the kind of implementation in context to the claims we are implementing, because the kind of skills or the kind of claims are we going to implement when we are managing the core elements or core elements, etc. Being a business analyst for a senior profiles, I don't say for a regular profile, but whereas when we are moving to the senior profiles, all that, it's always important for us to understand as well as to handle the claims handling as well, right? So claims department, apart from the team claim handling, expertise over the claim handling also required, because providing judgment over the claims, right? So which was processed so far, or else at the same time, whatever the risk assessment, right? What is the risk which is involved to process the claims or to accept, right, the claims and all that. So or else to proceed further, what are the risk which is involved in it. At the same time, whatever the prioritization to be made, right? So what are the elements to be taken into priority, right? So which elements we have to consider as a priority and which elements has to be not to be taken into priority. So that is something essentially required. So in this regard, it's always important for us to understand about the guidance process, because guidance process from the context of implementing the claims, having some exposure towards claim handling, either it can be of judgments or it can be risk assessments, right? So prioritization, all that. The third one about the visibility part, right? So visibility is also important, because when it comes to the visibility, we must be knowing about the monitoring, the performance, monitoring, I don't say performance, but monitoring of the claims, whatever processed so far, okay? Whatever the monitoring of the claims, whatever we have processed so far, based on the real-time information, what we have given to have a better outcome and all. So how this continuous monitoring will be taken place, especially when we are managing the claims operations and all. This is also one of the core and important element we have to be focused. This is what we call it as visibility. Normally, to have that visibility, there are reports which generally we need to prepare. So the reason why this is where integration comes into picture, not configuration. Integration comes into picture. Integration means Guidewire we are integrating, maybe we are integrating with some other maybe data visualization tools, like for example, either it can be Power BI or it can be Tableau, right? So because these are all different tools, I am naming few because these are the two prominent data visualization tools across industries we are using for a long time. So either it can be Tableau or it can be Power BI, etc. These has to be integrated with Guidewire application, integrated with Guidewire. So when we are integrating with Guidewire, even if you want to see any visibility, right? So if you want to see any performances, right? So there we can see whatever the report generations and all everything we can see. At the same time, whatever the claim operations performance you want to observe can be notified there. Next, Guidewire can be integrated even with Salesforce also, because Salesforce, or else it can be dynamic. I can say Salesforce, because Salesforce is a CRM application. If you remember a couple of weeks back, I have shown you from the context of Salesforce, I have shown you an insurance application. If you remember, I have told you that, I have shown you that. Because Salesforce CRM integration can also be done with Guidewire, so that if there is any customer relationship management process to be required to follow, because if you want to take any kind of decisions in regard to the customer implementation and all, what are the decisions to be taken, so all these things can be done using the CRM implementation. What is that we have to be performed? So these are the three core elements we have to be focused. So one is about the workflows. One is about the workflows. That is the first thing. Second, about the guidance part. So after the guidance, the next one about the visibility. So these are the three major aspects or three major elements which, being a BA, whenever we try to understand about the core requirements relating to the claims, one has to understand. This is all from the context of the claims I'm talking about. At the same time, whenever we try to understand about the claim processing in context to the visibility as is stated, we normally Guidewire can be integrated with two major, I don't say applications, but two major systems. One is about CRM system and second one about uh, data visualization tools. Okay. CRM system, something like Salesforce, right? So Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics. These are all something we call it as CRM applications. But when it comes to the dashboard, data visualization tools and all, we connect with Power BI, because rather than Tableau, normally Guidewire we can connect with Power BI even for data visualization purpose. If you want to visualize any kind of data, something of that sort. So this data visualization can also be done in this regard. So these are the three major core elements being into business analysis whenever we try to understand about the core requirements and all. When we need to understand, this is what something which we need to be focused more on. One is about the workflows, which we have to have a clarity over that. Next, we need to have focus over the guidance part. At the same time, we need to be discussed more over the visibility as well. So these are the three basic elements which we have to be understood. So whenever we try to understand this, it's always important even to understand about the business rules also, because tailoring the business is what something we have to do. Customization based on the business requirements, based on the previous applications, what they do, based on the previous claim processing or adjudication process, whatever they follow. Because there will be some clearing houses in between whenever we are processing the claims. There will be some clearing houses which will adjudicate whether the information given by us is right or not, right? So that we have to be focused. So in regard to that, tailoring the business according to the rules of the business, whatever the changes to be made and whatever the customization we wants to make has to be done by us being a business analyst. So this is majorly important when we are working on the customization part, because let's say Guidewire claims we are using now. Okay. Earlier, there is no guarantee the claim systems Guidewire is being used, right? So you may be using some other legacy system we are using. Now, what we have to do, we have to transform the data. This is where generally we call it as data migration comes into picture. Data migration means we have to migrate the data from old legacy systems to the new application, because these formats can be of any other formats, because there may be nowadays the formats what we are using is called XML, JSON. These are the files we are using, right? So JSON files or XML files we are using now and then. Different XML files or JSON files we are using. So using those JSON files and XML files and all, this data transformation and data migration has to be taken place. In this regard, so when you want to customize according to the requirement of the customer, client, right? So in context to the claims itself is concerned, being a business analyst, we have to be focused more on the business rules, what is to be adopted. At the same time, if there is any kind of government mandates to be changed, because if there is any policy level decisions as changed by the government, that has to be updated equally into the existing application, is also one of the core and important element. Being a business analyst, we need to be focused when we are working on the policy, when we are working on the claims related thing. Next addition to that, we have to be focused, because if you can go back slightly, because even we are working on the policy center also, because policy administration is what something which we need to do. So wherein there we need to validate the policies, because if you want to provide any kind of claims, all that, it's always important for us to understand about what are the validations to be taken place, right? So how policies can be validated and how the policies can be validation can be accessed, right? So how to validate the policies and how to identify and validate the policies, and at the same time to manage the databases. This is where generally backend databases comes into picture. So whenever we are working on the backend database, we need to understand about the billing part, because this is where generally billing part comes into existence. Because whatever the backend database we are managing, either in context to the accounts payables, or if you want to process any kind of systems we are going to manage, everything will be comes under this category. So this also we have to be done. We have to be performed when we are working into working as a business analyst in the claim perspective. As far as the responsibilities is concerned, I'm talking about. Next one about the external data sources. One more aspect, right? So we need to be focused more, which is called external data sources, because external data sources may be there. That's where when we are focusing on the data migration, this is where this point come into picture. Because whenever there are data which is available in the client environment, because this data may be an external data, right? So external data sources may be there, maybe different servers, client system servers will be there, where we need to have a permission. This is where some admin activities has to be performed. That's what, if you remember, when you are working on the configuration part, policy center configuration in the previous classes, if you remember, I told you about policy configuration. The reason is this. Because when we are working on the application side business analyst, because whether it can be Guidewire BA or any other application we use, most of the activities being a business analyst we will be performing is the configuration and all that. So these are all administrative activities. These are the, I don't say that 100% administrative activities will be performed by us, because connecting to the external data sources. For example, if you want to connect to an external data sources and all, you need to to write some global rules. Normally, whenever we are working on the project, there will be two rules. One is business. I'm not talking about the business rules. Business rules are relating to the business. But apart from business rules, there will be two more. One is about the project rules. Second is a global rules. Project rules means project rules to perform the project. Means if you are developing any application, what are the rules to be taken care of? For example, you are working on you are using some agile process. Okay, for example, you are working on Jira application. So when you are working on the Jira application, what is the project rule? Whatever the epics and user stories were written by us. So first, for example, if there are any user stories written on the particular epic, automatically once the user stories is completed, that epic has to be closed. Or else, for example, there is any kind of new task which was assigned, which was created, that has to be assigned automatically to the team. These are all, we call it as project rules, implementation of the project, nothing to do with Guidewire. Okay, these are whatever the rules I'm specifying you. These project rules are common for any project, because these project rules has to be defined by the business analyst team as well as admin team. The reason why I'm explaining this to you. But roles and responsibilities may vary, because some organizations might require a person to have a complete understanding over administration, data administration, or maybe configuration, or expert in database administration, right? Some companies may ask you, or else they have their own database administrators who will be taken care of. Being a business analyst, you will be confined only to the requirements. This may vary. Okay, it will not be the same all the time. Third one about global rules. That's where I'm saying why, because I'm talking about external resources, data resources, because of this reason. When we are talking about the global rules, global permissions we have to provide, because if you want to access any server, external data servers of the customer servers, if you want to access that, there are some global permissions to be taken, right? So you need to write global permissions, you need to create filters and all, you have to create some global permissions so that accessing of data is possible, because all these data is encrypted data. Data will be encrypted because everything you cannot see, right? So it will be an encrypted format. So if you want to access the data, make sure you need to create some global rules for the project. So then only you can access the external data sources, whatever we have. For example, you want to access some claim history, right? So whatever the claims were done so far, right? So you want to know about the claim history indexes, right? So at the same time, you want to know about the kind of analytics, right? So either it can be you want to not only as a BA, maybe as a business analytics team. For example, there will be some business analytics team, right? And for example, they want to know about they want to take some decision. For that, they want to know about the predictive analytics, right? They want to know about what could be the future requirements. or future predictions if they want to do, right? So they want to do some predictive analytics, all that, right? So for that reason, what is needed, there is a possibility, there is a need wherein we have to connect to the external data sources and we have to gather the information from them. So in this regard, it's always important for us to know about the kind of global rules, what is to write, and what are the different global rules to be performed for the particular application is what something which we have to be focused more on. So these are the major elements we have to perform if you are a business analyst from the claims center point of view. Because when we are applying for jobs, there is no guarantee that all the three modules required for some job profiles, because you might have come across, you may see some job profiles like Guidewire Business Analyst they required in Policy Center. Some people may ask you Guidewire Business Analyst they required only on claims. That is there, okay? Because don't confine that Guidewire Business Analyst means people may expect all these three modules for all the profiles, because profile to profile, whatever the module they were expecting you to have expertise may vary, because some people will ask you about the policy center, somebody may be asking about the billing part, somebody may be asking about the claims. If they are asking more about the policy center, will be focusing more on the policy center configuration. That's the reason majority of the time when I'm explaining about the Guidewire, I have taken more time for Guidewire Policy Center, because configuration is more, steps for configurations are more requirements and more, I don't say job opportunities were there even for claims, etc. But when you are comparing to this, we have more for Policy Center configuration. So Policy Center configuration will be the highest priority. Any job profiles you see, Policy Center configuration will be on the high priority item. So Policy Center configurations, one thing to be done. But when it comes to the billing and all, you will be having less, I don't say less requirement, but you have less less percentage comparing to Policy Center. Because you don't see much differences in the billings unless until if there is any changes in the billing life cycle, or else it can be maybe the percentage, or else either it can be brokerage commissions if there is any kind of changes in that percentages and all, right? So this is where some changes we have to make. That too depends on the organization, but the commission structure may vary from organization to organization, but tax structure remains same for all the organizations. Now, but when it comes to the claims and all, if there is any individual claims, as I told you in the beginning, because when I explained about the workflow, if you remember, I told you, when there are any kind of workflows you are going to create, end-to-end process of the workflow we are creating a workflow for each and every individual claim. So why? Because each and every individual claim has its own differences, has its own difference, has its own existence, right? So that's the reason why this is the area where we have to be focused more. So workflows and all, everything is what we need to know. So when you are applying for opportunities, there are possibilities more. They may be asking about user interface configurations, which was already discussed. Workflow configuration and workflow processes will also be in the high priority item. But this part I have not discussed on a high level note. If you remember in the last sessions I discussed before I'm going to billing, I have discussed about the workflow part and a high level note, but not in detail. So in detail, that's what I'm going to discuss from tomorrow onwards, right? So we need to focus more on workflow, because these workflow changes are more will be done by us being a BA, because based on the workflow process what we have created, this process of claim processing, which will be moving on to the next level, will be taken care of by the what we call by the development team, right? So because if they are want to write any kind of code for the particular project and all, so those writing the code and all, everything will be done based on the workflow process what we have created. This workflow process may vary. This workflow process may vary from a claim to claim, individual claim to claim, whatever the claim do we have. So this workflow process may vary. This is where this workflow configurations and workflow procedures and steps, which we have to be focused more on. At the same time, when it comes to the workflows, it's not only about the claims, even this is related even for the policy center also, because the policy center as well as the claims, regular workflow process, whatever we are following. So be useful and may be required when we are working as a business analyst. Even for policy center, it may be required. At the same time, you may be required even for workflows also. So that's the reason when I'm discussing about the next session tomorrow, I'm going to start about the workflow process, how this workflow configurations to be done, and what are the steps to be followed to make any changes in the workflows and all. How do we do that? What are the steps to be taken and what are the key elements to be focused more on is what something I'm going to discuss from tomorrow onwards. So this is all about the claims from the context of a BA, because whatever we have discussed so far since a long time, whatever we are going to discuss is relating to that. Okay, because we must be knowing about what are the different claims do we have, right? So all these things is what something which being a business analyst we need to know. So workflow configurations, workflow processes, all these things we are going to discuss from tomorrow onwards. Tomorrow onwards, I'll continue. Tomorrow onwards, this workflow configurations and all everything we are going to discuss. Is it clear, Sojanya and Priya?
Yes, sir. Yeah.